1470 WWNN Pompano Beach, Boca Raton, Miami, Fort Lauderdale. Tune in for laughs and surprises with The Boca Show. Sundays at 4, only on 1470 WNN.
The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
The content of the following program, including all statements from the hosts and guests, is to provide general information and commentary about the law. Under no circumstances does any statement made by the host or guest to a caller or listener constitute legal advice or the formation of an attorney-client relationship, and the material from this program shall not be viewed as substitute for a personal consultation with an attorney. Now, prepare yourself to be informed and entertained by Gus Bravo and Neil Kotze, two AV-rated trial lawyers who have been practicing law for a combined total of nearly 40 years. For the next 30 minutes, they will share their insight and commentary on important legal issues affecting all of us.
A professional bank robber who had robbed 10 banks and had been arrested 10 times but never convicted because of the scrupulous lawyer he used. A criminal defense lawyer, young whippersnapper who was not only unscrupulous but a little dishonest. As the bank robber gets older, he finally passes away, and as you might imagine, instead of going north, he goes south. And he's being escorted around by the devil in his new environment, and there he sees the criminal defense lawyer who had defended him those 10 times, making love to the most beautiful woman you could imagine. And the bank robber looks at the devil and he says, "Oh my gosh, that guy was a lying, cheating lawyer. What in the world is he doing?" And the devil says, "Who are you to question that lady's punishment?" Welcome to Attorney Confidential. I'm Neil Kotze.
I like that, and I'm Gus Bravo. So the lady got the short end of the stick. Really,
hey, I don't know how far we can go on the air with jokes
well,
like
you said
that.
Making love. That's...
Yeah, well, I thought making love was okay. Short end of the stick is leaving implications. Well, anyway.
Listen, our goal here is to try to get more callers than the polka show on Sunday nights. So I figured along those lines.
I just had these images of John Candy in Home Alone when they're right back with polka. You may have heard of us, the Saskatchewan, whatever.
Yes, polka. That's the bowling team.
Yeah.
Right? They're the bowling team, I remember. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Well, no, I'm talking about Home Alone when he's riding home with the mother in the van.
Oh, yes.
The polka musicians that drive her all the way to Chicago.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah. Attorney Confidential with Gus and Neil. We digress.
We sidetracked just a little bit. Sidebar, Your Honor.
888-565-1470. You can watch us live on ustream.tv, or you can listen on the web. Well, if you're going to be on the web, you might as well
go to
watch
Ustream.
us,
right.
watch us live. But if you want to just listen on your phone, stream, it's iRadio Now app. So, in order to try to beat the polka show, which I hear gets great callers,
right?
I want to offer an incentive, okay? For anyone who calls, you're going to get a 30-minute free consultation with an AV-rated, twice awarded the best defense verdict. No, I'm sorry.
Why am I
the most effective lawyer, and hold on, wait for it. The bonus is they'll get a free koozie. So, Neil, why don't you explain to the listeners what your koozies are?
Well, all koozies are what you wrap cans in. They keep them cold because
the beers.
I need it because it takes me so long to drink a beer. I need something to keep it cold before. Yeah.
Yes.
Anybody who knows me knows it doesn't make any sense really.
You got these koozies 2 years ago for a golf
tournament. When I sponsored, I was one of the sponsors for our Rotary golf tournament.
It was a great idea. Yeah. It was a great idea. I'm sure you still have some surplus koozies around.
I have a few.
So if you call in, you not only will get a free 30-minute consultation with Mr. Kotze, but you might even throw in a
free koozie and a beer to go along with it if we want to have our consultation at a local pub.
There you go. 888-565-1470. Today is Monday, June 15th. And today happens to be the 800th anniversary of the Magna Carta, or Magna Carta.
Really? They actually know it was June 15th, the Magna Carta?
Yes.
Wow.
June 15th. I don't want to do the math, but sometime in 1215, I would imagine.
Yeah, that would be about right.
So, so I think we have a picture of the Magna. There you go. So this picture for those folks on the web, or actually the folks listening, the folks on the web can see what the picture's about.
And I think that's me right in the back corner.
With the koozie. So this is, I want to say this might be King Henry. Let me see. My sources tell me which king this might be.
Are you looking it up on Wikipedia?
I absolutely am looking it up on Wikipedia and see who it is. This was signed by King John of England on June 15, 1215. So, the Magna Carta has been sort of referenced over history, over centuries, as the original Bill of Rights.
Right.
And I know, Neil, I think you had some encounters with it.
We were talking about it before the show. I'll get a shout out to a very good lawyer I've tried many cases against. His name's Marvin Weinstein, who couldn't make it through a jury selection process or opening statement without citing to the Magna Carta, primarily because he was suing tobacco companies, and it's really good to talk about the document that allows the individual and protects the individual against the large entity. We didn't have a lot of large corporations in 1215, but the whole purpose was to give people a Bill of Rights to go against the kingdom or to go against the larger entity or the larger business.
The irony it was repealed like 2 weeks later. But then over time, it's been obviously readopted and whatnot. But 800th anniversary of the Magna Carta, which I think is a very impressive original document. I know it had some individual Bill of Rights. And we have our first caller. I told you the koozies would be a big hit.
All right.
So we have Dave on the line. Dave, you're listening to Call It In with Attorney Confidential with Gus and Neil. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, first of all, isn't the Magna Carta, isn't that some type of beer or something?
I'm sure it is some type of New Age beer.
But anyway, okay, I've got to get a trust, a living trust, and I'm wondering what really do I need, because my house is paid for, my car is paid for, I owe no one anything. I'll be retiring this coming year, and I have one son. And so, do I just need a living trust? Is that all I need, really?
Well, Neil, why don't you go ahead and start the 30-minute free consultation now?
Well, I mean, one of the things is, and neither Gus nor I actually practice in trust as estates law, but generally what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure that your assets are protected for your one child. The issue is, what do you want to do? Do you want to set money aside to hold in trust for them? Is that your question?
Well, I have money. I have money on the side right now. A lot of money's on the side. Given the market and the way it is, I have money, and I have safe deposit box with money and some gold in it, and stuff like that. And so,
how old's let me ask you this: how old's your son?
He's 30.
Yeah, so you don't need to have a trustee because you're not talking about a minor child. I mean, there may be tax reasons that you might want to create a trust, which would be kind of for an accountant to talk to you about. But as far as legally, setting money aside in trust versus actually putting it in your will, I mean, you definitely want to have a will that gets all the money to your son if that's your sole beneficiary.
Right.
Because if you don't do it through a will, even if they're your only heir, they're going to have to go through a probate process. I'm dealing with that, helping someone through that right now, as a matter of fact, doing it pro bono for a friend. And it's a complicated process if you've got to go through it without a will. So even if it's a simple will, you could actually go online and take the first stab at it through, what's the one, Gus, that you told me about that site?
Well, there's LegalZoom. There's a whole host of other sources online. We've talked about this before. The Google, School of Law is actually fairly helpful.
Yeah, but what I want to add to that is, though, I'm just saying to go to that as the first stab and then have a lawyer look it over.
Right.
Because then you're not paying a lawyer to actually draft the document for you, which could be a little more expensive. You're doing the first draft and just having a lawyer, as we say in the Jewish religion, make it kosher. So.
Okay, but I'd always heard that you have a trust so you avoid probate and all that sort of thing,
Well, not necessarily. I mean, it depends on how the trust is set up.
If it's done by a obviously licensed attorney that specializes or focuses in this area, you may be able to avoid that. I think one of the things that the trust gives you over a will, it gives you a lot more flexibility during your lifetime while you're alive in order to, you can actually get assets and acquire assets and put in the name of the trust, bank accounts, properties, and whatnot, and you make yourself the trustee, and obviously then you can have a successor trustee if once you pass, which it sounds like you may want to make your son.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, Dave, where are you located, Dave?
I actually live in the Jupiter area.
Okay.
So,
Because we have a network of, one of the things Gus and I pride ourselves in is we have a network of lawyers that if we don't know the area, we know who to send people to. I'll give you a firm in Weston I use, and if you didn't want to travel to Weston, they might be able to refer you to someone in Jupiter, because lawyers that practice in this area tend to know each other. But there's a law firm, Kraus and Goldberg. Adam Goldberg's a good friend of mine, excellent trust and estates lawyer out of Weston. Kraus is spelled Krause, Goldberg, Goldberg. It's Adam Goldberg. They have a firm. That's all they do. I would give them a call, and they may be able to help you. Very simple questions, set it up. And I would also talk to your accountant about whether it's necessary to go that route.
Yeah, there's. I mean, look, we once the problem, Neil, is once you start naming names, you leave out people. And so we're actually we have like Neil said, Dave, we have a host of other small firm lawyers like ourselves who focus in certain areas. Neil and I tend to do more of the labor and employment and some of the consumer and the personal injury type claims. But there are folks that really know this area of law a lot better than we do. I would tell you this: we know enough to be dangerous and to guide you in the right direction. I think, though, your question is probably something that can be easily addressed once you gather your, all your sort of facts and be able to consult with someone. You may not even, they may tell you may not even need a lawyer, but if you're interested in creating a trust, I think you certainly want to have someone who focuses on this area do it, because there are a lot of other issues you may not even be aware of that come up, and they may decide that this may not be the best vehicle for you after all. So we'd be happy to share more names with you if you just want to write down either Neil's phone office number or my office number. Neil, go ahead.
Yeah, Dave, you can reach me at 786-464-0841 for the free consultation too. That Gus
and don't forget to ask for the koozie too, Dave.
And I can come up with some other names. I could probably find some people for you closer to Jupiter on the trust issue.
Right, and Dave, ask for the koozie, and that's what. I'm sorry, ask for the koozie, and that's where you can put the Magna Carta in there too. Keep it cold.
Yeah, I always wonder about that. But some people must think it is a type of beer.
I'm sure it's a beer. I'm sure it's a beer. Dave, thank you so much for the call.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So you look, the koozies are a big hit.
Yeah, there we
go. I told you it would be a big hit. So, anyways, I think you probably have 2 or 3 more of those koozies available. So anyone wants to call in. And again, we'll try our best to answer. We pride ourselves as being somewhat of generalists, but there's areas we focus in.
If I remember back to show 2 or 3, we actually talked about the certain areas of the law that you want to go to a specialist on. We talked about workers' compensation, taxation. I think trust and estates might have been the other one.
I think Dave's on the right track here, because I think he's at least taken the time to think about, hey, I may want to do something. I have some assets. I need some protection. Certainly, a trust tends to be a very popular vehicle, but there are other things. And I think the minute he mentioned tax, I think both you and I kind of sat up a little bit, because I think that's an area that you really need to have someone who's well versed in that.
Absolutely, because there's so many issues and loopholes and things to get in and out of when it comes to tax. And when you're talking about inheritance, that's really what you're dealing with is tax. If you're the trust issues, typically when you have minor children, and I don't the kids that are under the age of 16. And so what you want to do is make sure that if you pass before they reach the age of majority, that they're protected.
Right.
And so there's a trustee for them. But once you have a child in their 20s or especially 30s, really, then the only difference between going through a trust system and going through a will system is going to depend on the taxation issue, I think.
Right.
Primarily. I mean, there might be some other issues there, but primarily it's going to be a tax question.
Now, all these opinions and comments have been given to you by the law offices of Neil D. Cotzi, PA.
Yeah, right.
And so when we come back from the
There's
break...
a disclaimer at the beginning.
When we come back from the break, we'll talk about some of the major headlines coming up. But so far, you're listening to Attorney Confidential with Gus and Neil. All the opinions have been given by one Mr. Neil D. Cotzi.
Attorney Confidential with Gus and Neil is being brought to you by the law offices of Neil D. Cotzi and Bravo Law. Bravo Law is a business litigation firm known for providing common sense solutions to small businesses and individuals throughout South Florida. Mr. Bravo is rated AV by Martindale Hubble and Superb by AVBO, the highest ratings available from these two entities. The law offices of Neil D. Cotzi is the litigation boutique with offices in Broward and Miami-Dade counties. Mr. Cotzi is a veteran trial lawyer with nearly 25 years of jury trial experience. He is also a two-time recipient of the South Florida Daily Business Review's Most Effective Lawyer Award, a recipient of numerous awards for providing pro bono legal services, and has been recognized by the National Law Council. Call our office, 786-464-0841 or 954-790-6711 and get informed. You're listening to Attorney Confidential with Gus and Neil. If you have a comment, question, or just want to contribute to the conversation, call the show at 888-565-1470 and share your thoughts on what's going on. Now, back to Gus and Neil for more Attorney Confidential.
And we're back to Attorney Confidential with Gus and Neil. I want to thank Dave for the call, being the first caller and the first taker of that offer of the koozies. I told you that would be a big hit. Dave, hope we were able to answer your question. Honestly, there's a lot of things that I'm sure we didn't cover that if he gets in touch with you or me, we'd be happy to answer. These types of things, folks, it's initial consultation. I always tell my clients, it's prospective clients, it's free of charge until we establish an attorney-client relationship. We may not even be able to help you, but maybe we'll be able to point you in the right direction. Right. So I think, look, Dave's point, I think it's well taken. Ask a lawyer, find out, get some answers. There may be a lot of questions that you may have or may be triggered by some of your questions. But anyways, so with that in mind, we have some headlines that I know we wanted to cover. So I want to punt it right to you and jump in the first headline.
Absolutely.
Me. Well, I can talk about some of the sports. It's been a wonderful. You know what? Before you move on, see, you lost.
I lost my chance.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm pounding this thing. That's how emotional I get about this stuff. Thank you, Steph Curry. You know who Steph Curry is? Yes. Okay. Thank you, Steph Curry, for finally playing in like the MVP that you are, and putting hopefully a dagger into Cleveland's chances.
I'll age myself again. I watched his dad play for the Charlotte Hornets.
I did too. I did too. You're not that old.
That old, right?
Or it wasn't that long ago that he played.
Dell, yeah.
Yeah, but you know, the funny thing about this is again, look, I'm nothing against Cleveland. It's really LeBron. And I feel like the jilted ex-boyfriend whose girlfriend broke up with him, and now she's calling and all happy and saying, guess what, I'm getting married. Right? And you say, well, good for you, but I hope it doesn't work out.
And who is the real star of that Golden State Warrior team, though, is the Tar Heel Harrison Barnes.
Yes, he actually played very well.
he had played very well.
I always want to name drop a Tar Heel, but go ahead, your story.
All right, well, our news story was, I saw in Reuters just yesterday that Michael Kors Holdings has agreed to pay $4.88 million, which is just shy of $5 million for those that are mathematically challenged, like my friend Gus here.
4.88.
But to settle a class action lawsuit claiming that they used deceptive price tags at their outlet stores to fool shoppers into believing they were getting better bargains. And so apparently what Kors Holdings was doing was they created an artificial MSRP, or manufacturer's suggested retail price, on all their products. They'd say something had an MSRP of $10 and we're going to sell it to you for $4, when in reality it didn't have any MSRP. The value was only $5. We're selling it to you for $4.
This is shocking. I mean, really?
Right.
Really? Anyone who's ever bought anything?
But what's interesting about that is there's a lot of law firms now going after, and this is a perfect example. In one of our shows, we talked about class actions, the Pacquiao fight class actions, and some others, and consumer claims. This is a perfect example. Whenever you go shopping and you see a manufacturer suggested retail price, you might want to wonder where that's coming from, because if it's fabricated or false and has no basis.
So Michael Kors is a manufacturer of...
They have retail stores. It's a retail outlet. He owns retail outlets.
Okay, so he's not...
Primarily in New York, I
think. Is he
but
the manufacturer?
No.
So it was somebody else manufacturing the products.
Well, no, that's the beauty there was no manufacturer suggested retail price. Just whenever they sold something in their outlets, they took
it upon themselves.
They took it upon themselves to represent that each, like if they were selling a shirt for $10, they'd put on the tag that we're selling you this for 10, but the manufacturer suggested retail price is 20.
So wait a minute. My wife loves to shop at these Sawgrass outlets.
Right.
And so she always sells it to me this way. I saved you $100, $200, $300 because it actually cost $300, but I only bought it for $100.
So
you telling me all along?
You know, Clarice, my wife's credit cards were stolen 3 years ago. I still haven't reported the theft because the thief is spending less than she was. So.
Clarence, I hope you're listening. And if next week if Clarence is sitting in this chair, we'll know why.
Next Monday, I will be reporting to you how comfortable my couch is.
Well, we'll have a missing person report for Neil. So, all right, so this is now a class action?
Well, it's just settled. It was a class. It was filed as a class action, but it's a perfect example of, think about this for a second. We're talking about products, we're talking about shirts, we're talking about clothing, other products that maybe the most expensive thing in one of these retail stores is $100. So using that by way of example, each person may only have, like your wife might have a $300 savings if she believed the MSRP. So each person's lawsuit against Michael Kors is only worth about $300.
No, but that's a lot of people.
But that's what I'm getting at. That's a perfect example.
No, it's not a one-time thing.
Oh, yeah.
The wives are not going once.
Well, yeah. As a former tobacco lawyer, I'm not allowed to use the word addiction, but people tend to be addicted to shopping in certain environments.
What's the word that you are allowed to use?
Well,
permanent habit.
There are a lot of things I'm not allowed to do that I do anyway. But the issue really is that it is a perfect example of how class actions work. That's why I like that story.
It's mass deception.
Because the one thing that you have to show is that everybody's deceived the same way, so that it's an appropriate action for class-wide relief.
Right.
That's why car accidents, even if you have a terrible driver who on Monday gets in a car accident and hurts somebody, then on Wednesday gets in a car accident, then on Friday, and to the point that by the end of the year this person has gotten in 30 accidents, those people don't have a class action because each accident is different.
Even as you know, even the tobacco cases don't really lend themselves to that because there's the general causation. I don't want to bore people, and Dave, you're still listening. Thank you for sticking with us. But there's the special causation, which is did tobacco cause this person's cancer?
Well, exactly, and in fact, the industry has fought very hard. The only state that really has gotten a class action certified of smokers is Florida.
But even that was
and there are a few others, actually. Shouldn't be the only state, but very few on very esoteric issues.
Yeah, so the moral of the story here is if you're going to make up a price, at least have some semblance of support for it. I mean, we all know that these manufacturers suggest the retail prices are... Yeah,
but usually they come from the manufacturer.
That's true. I mean, it's very true. What's your next story?
I mean, the other one, actually, there were some interesting stories about from the Legally Weird. I went back and there was a series of stories. It is actually, and there was an interesting line of stories about people avoiding jury duty through creative costumery, is how the story was written. Man avoids jury duty by wearing an orange jumpsuit. I mean,
that's creative.
That is creative. You walk into court and it's a criminal trial. Can you be fair? Hey, I think I know him. It's not gonna, but it was interesting because
a number and a ball and chain.
Gus and I have joked about this before, but as I read that, it really in some ways strikes a nerve as a lawyer in that jury duty is important. And you started the show off with the Magna Carta and what we do to protect people's rights. Our jury system is really the one way in a civil setting where if a individual is suing let's say a big corporation like a tobacco company, the only way they're going to get justice is to have 12 peers in the box, as we say, a jury of their peers, to look at the evidence and decide that case. In the old days, if you go back to the 1600s, Don't say it. When I tried my first case, I know, Gus, you're
No.
But
So when your partnership came in.
Juries were not made up of peers. Juries were made up of the elite.
Right.
And so the
Right.
elite would always win. Figure that. So
Look, I think we had a story. I don't know. We did the story on the show. It's been so many shows now.
this is number 11, I think. We
Wow.
celebrated our
We're-
10th anniversary last week.
What'd you get me? Anyways, so
30-minute free consultation and a koozie.
No, I want the koozie. I want the koozie. So I remember we talked about this. Judge Roberts, Chief Justice Roberts, showed up for jury duty one day.
That's right. We did talk about
Okay,
that.
and look, it's we all as lawyers we appreciate when we have a very qualified jury, because at the end of the day you want to prevail with what your arguments.
Right.
You don't want to prevail on any trickery or any deception. Although some of my criminal defense brethren attorneys would disagree with me, but as civil lawyers, we want the most qualified jury there.
Say it again. The sign behind the judge in every courthouse we try case says, "We who labor here seek only the truth." And during jury selections, I've referred to myself as a truth seeker, because that really is what, in all reality, that's what our job is to seek the truth and have the jury hear what we believe to be the
Right.
truth.
And look, I would recommend anyone to actually sit through the exercise. I know it's a pain, especially in Broward. You have to, in Palm Beach and Dade, obviously, you got to show up there early. No one wants to do it, but inevitably, all friends and families have gone through the process. Once they go through it, they say, you know what, it wasn't that bad. Actually, I learned a lot.
Whenever someone, how many times have you gotten the call, Gus? I get calls all the time from people.
How do I get
out of jury duty? And my first response is
Don't.
why? Look, if you have a legitimate conflict where your job, your income, you can't sit on a jury for more than a day or two, tell the court that. There are plenty of 1- and 2-day trials to sit on a jury. And what you learn through the process and through the system is so educational. And it's beneficial. Not only that, but it helps the parties.
And it's hard to complain about the legal system, right, when you don't participate in it. And if you refuse to participate in it, if you're not happy about some of the decisions, if you're not happy about some of the things that are taking place in the court system, this is your one chance to be involved. And by the way, you are a critical component of it. I mean, that's what we want. Most of us want, again, who labor here seek only the truth.
And it's interesting because when you're doing tobacco trials, and we can come up with other examples as well, sometimes you're in the opposite situation. You're actually trying to weed out the people that want a little bit too much to be on your jury.
Oh, yes.
They're called stealth jurors, and you have people that go, ooh, I can really sock it to them. And so you have to weed through and find those.
Recently that lied on her questionnaire. I don't know if you read that. I got to pull up the story. Maybe we'll talk about it next week. But they discovered that someone lied on their questionnaire in order to get on the jury. And then they discovered that after the fact. And, of course, now that verdict is on appeal. Because, I mean, again, we want a nice balance. We don't want the extremes. We don't want to force someone on there, but we don't want someone.
Going to truth, I mean, when we pick a jury, we pick it through pick juries through a process known as voir dire, which is French for speak
I
the
figured
truth.
as a North Carolinian,
voir dire. It's voir
like
dire.
my cousin Vinny.
Right. I've heard it pronounced.
There
all
was
sorts of
another
ways.
example of getting out of the jury.
Oh,
that
this
you
is
had.
the one that we. So
'Cause
the
we're
next
running out of
example is a
time.
lady who showed up in a clown outfit, t-shirt, dress skirt, reindeer socks, hair curlers, and 2 different shoes and a red nose. Claims she had PTSD, and this is how she dressed every day.
What's PTSD?
Post-traumatic stress disorder. So she claimed to be ill and
I thought you were going to tell
mentally
me
deranged.
she claimed she was a lawyer.
Well, that gives you PTSD in a different setting. But she claimed to be ill and obviously didn't get selected. And then, because she has a friend who's a lawyer on the radio show, neither me nor Gus, she has a friend. She went on the radio the following week and bragged about how she got out of jury duty and then got convicted of a felony because she committed perjury during jury selection. So if you're going to do something dishonest to get out of jury duty, don't go on the radio and confess to it.
I visualize Will Ferrell's face when he says, "What an idiot!" You know, and say that. Listen, if you're going to do that, don't brag about it. I mean, but serves her right.
Right.
Serves her right.
So the music is coming. I don't know if you have time for your quote of the day.
let's to take away and then the quote of the day. Let's pull up the picture.
Take it away is juries are important. We talked about a lot of other stuff, but I'll emphasize, if you're on jury duty, don't try to get out. If you can devote 2-3 days, it's a good endeavor to devote.
Okay, so here's the quote of the day. This is from John Lennon, who said, "When I was 5 years old, my mother always told me that happiness was the key to life. When I went to school, they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wrote down happy. They told me I didn't understand the assignment, and I told them they didn't understand life. John Lennon. Thank you again for tuning in to Attorney Confidential with Gus and Neil. Dave, don't forget to ask for your koozie.
All right.
Very important.
Thanks, Dave. Look forward to talking to you again. Good night.
You have been listening to Attorney Confidential with Gus Bravo and Neil Kotze, two rated AV trial attorneys with over 40 years of experience. Tune in next week for another episode of entertainment, insight, and just plain fun. That's Monday, 6 p.m. on WNN, 1470 AM. See you next Monday for more Attorney Confidential. The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its host.